Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Meherzad Panthake, and I will be the presenter for the webinar today. Hope I'm audible to everyone. Could everyone please just confirm this by mentioning it in the chat box? All right, so let's proceed and start this session. Okay, so to start things off, let me first start off by giving everyone an idea of who we at CloudThat are. CloudThat is a training and consulting company. We were founded in 2012. We have trained over 7,000 participants in the last 5 years. We provide training and consulting services in cloud, big data, and IoT domain. We at CloudThat have a dynamic team of certified professionals. We focus on quickly empowering IT professionals and organizations to leverage cloud and big data. We have a robust consulting division that complements our training. And we have a global presence in the consulting and training market. Now let me give everyone a brief idea of who our speaker for the day is. Mr. Sankir. Sankir is an Amazon certified solutions architect with extensive experience working with AWS. He specializes in running MongoDB clusters on AWS. In his previous tenure at TCS, he has worked on developing and deploying internal applications on AWS Cloud. He has architected various solutions on AWS and has managed deployments using AWS. He has conducted trainings for organizations such as TCS, Infosys, HP, etc. Along with this, he has also conducted cloud training workshops for faculties and students in engineering colleges. He currently leads a CloudThat consulting team and has been involved in various large and complex global projects. So now, without further ado, let me hand over the proceedings to the speaker for the day, Mr. Sankir Reddy.
So when we look at cloud computing over the years has changed from being a buzzword among all the enterprises, smaller companies to larger organizations, to a very mandated need among all the organizations right now. So we will be going through that journey today. So I'll take you through what is cloud computing, what and why of it. I'll also talk about digital transformation and the trends right now, the opportunity trends that are going on right now, and who are the major service providers currently on the planet. We'll also take a closer look at what are the offerings by Amazon Web Services, and few job roles, what exactly revolve around Amazon Web Services, and what are the certification tracks that they have, and then we'll take up questions and networking sessions. So in case you have any questions, please feel free to type it on the chat box. I have a team of moderators who will be taking up those questions, and I will be addressing all of them at the end of the session. Right. So let's jump in. I guess so just to begin with understanding what cloud computing is doing, let's look at a different industry. When you look at manufacturing, so this is a 1975 312T model Ferrari car. It is it has 495 horsepower, and this was in 1975. The same company, if you look at it after 40 years, they're manufacturing with roughly around 50% more horsepower. But if you look at computing as an industry, now this is an Altair 8800. It was the first officially available or commercially available computer in same year 1975. And if you look at it, the whole input and output was using those blinking lights and the toggle switches. If you look at, there's a floppy disk, something which we have never used. And it has 2 megahertz. We are right now talking about gigahertz. It has 2 megahertz of CPU and 256 bytes of memory. The same year as the first slide I was showing. But right now, I guess all of us know what this is. This is Pixel XL2, which has 2.3 gigahertz octa-core CPU, 8 different cores of CPU, 4 GB RAM, 128 GB disk, and it has a touch input with a 5-inch display. That is almost 100,000 times faster and a billion times more storage than what was there in 1975. So in every industry, there is a movement forward. But to make a note, computing is actually going through that change very, very fast. Keeping that in mind, even the web application deployments, when you look at it, initially they were all deployed on mainly mainframe or on a single core machines. But right now, when you look at traditional IT infrastructure, you first think of physical layer, the initial layer which is consisting of data centers, which is consisting of machines where you want to purchase those machines, networking equipment, and all this actually requires a lot of time and effort for you to go ahead and look at real estate for it, look at vendors who will be giving you networking equipment and all the physical infrastructure needed. And post that, you'll be looking at the computational infrastructure itself. What is the overall storage that I want to have? What is the overall compute capacity that I need to have? What is the total network bandwidth that I need to have? So you would be estimating this, and then you'd be moving forward to having database servers, web servers deployed on all of this, application servers deployed on all of these infrastructure, followed by your actual application. Now, this application could be, could be used by multiple different types of users. It could be from, B2C, B2B, and it can also look at multiple ways of presenting it from cell phones, computers, tablets, or whatnot. Only thing, there's a huge issue with, every layer that we can actually see. When you look at the physical layer, it needs a lot of upfront capital. So although your application is something that you want to deploy it in a very fast manner, you might have to actually look at real estate, purchasing real estate, building buildings, getting networking connectivity, getting electricity. So it needs a lot of capital upfront that is there, and also it ends up as a physical limitation at the end. So one fine day you would realize that yes, one data center is not enough for me. I might have to go ahead and actually do the whole process again. And then I also need to hire good network engineers who can actually do all this setup for me. And when I look at low level hardware, it gets very difficult to estimate because the application that we see right now today in 2017, there are a lot of consumer facing applications, and it gets very difficult for us to estimate exactly how much storage capacity or how much compute capacity that we need. And the bigger problem is hardware becomes cheaper every month. If you look at it, something that was costing 1 terabyte hard disk that was costing X amount 3 years back would definitely be something different right now. And what do we do with the older hardware that we have purchased? So these are the questions that are raised after having to purchase, after having to do a lot of upfront investment into deploying infrastructure. And also the low level softwares that you look at it, you have a lot of upfront licensing cost. You need to have you need to purchase those licenses from the specific organizations for web servers, for database servers, for application servers. And you need, of course, you need good system management team who will be able to take care of all these applications for you. And then comes your actual application layer, and this is the problem here is it is tightly coupled to the geographic location. So you would deploy your application in one single, so your data center you purchased in India, but one fine day you realize that your customer base is not just India, but you're moving on and becoming globally. So your application layer still becomes tightly coupled to the geographic location. Once you realize that you might have to go ahead and increase your customer base, you might have to start over the whole process from the physical layer till the application layer. So I call this as pyramid of effort. If you see, the actual application that is looking at consumers is what our right business is. But we spend a lot of effort in doing the below part, the physical layer, low level hardwares and low level softwares, which are not actually our business, but we spend a lot of time and effort in that gray area. So that is what cloud is trying to take up. Cloud in general is basically looking at making your life easy in deploying your applications faster with more reliability and without having to worry about actually whether my application will be up and running all the time or not. You basically concentrate on your actual application code, look at features, look at what makes your customers tick, what features should I actually give to my customer, rather than worrying about will my networking equipment work or will there be any failure on the hardware level. So giving that as the introduction, let me just get into the definition of what cloud computing is. Cloud computing, if you ask me to define it in one single line, I would say this. Cloud computing is delivery of computing as a service rather than a product. There are two different words here, service and product. Everything else, I guess, is self-explanatory. Now, when something is a product, assume that you have, maybe 100 years ago, when you look at electricity, electricity was a product before. When if you have to set up a simple data center, before even thinking of setting up a compute data center, you might have to actually set up a grid which is generating electricity and then provide that as the electricity to the data center that you actually have. So that was the scenario where electricity was a product. I'm sorry. And then moving on, right now in 2000, for many years now, electricity has become a service that is provided by public sector companies, that is provided by governments. We don't have to worry about exactly where the electricity is getting generated from, how is it getting generated, and how do we only worry about how we use it. We basically apply to an organization which is providing electricity and we start using it. We don't worry about the failure of it. We don't worry about taking care of it. So that is what a movement of a product to a service is, and which is exactly what is happening with computing right now. Computing, if you look at it, earlier, if you have to set up everything, if you have to set up a traditional IT infrastructure, you might have to worry about the low level hardware, the low level software, everything you have to worry about, and you need to take care of everything. But right now, cloud computing is changing that. It is making availability of hardware as a service. So you don't have to worry about procurement, you don't have to worry about estimation, you just have to allocate, use, and pay for what you use. Now that's what a service is. I hear a lot of people asking me about security about on cloud computing. So how do you estimate that saying cloud computing is secure? Now security is always a shared responsibility model. When I say a shared responsibility model, I mean that the service provider is definitely going to take care of some part of the security. And as a consumer or as a customer, you are also responsible for taking care of part of the security. What do I mean by this? Let me just go back to my electricity example. So if right now, if there is, it is government's responsibility to give you guidelines to make sure that your premises is actually safe. You need to make sure that your switching equipment or your plug points, everything is completely safe, and government provides guidelines for it. In case there is some live wire open at your home and somebody gets hurt because of it, government is not responsible. What is government responsible for is making sure that everything is safe and secure in the substations, not at your home. But when in your home, it is your responsibility to make sure that everything is followed by the guidelines. Now, having said that, even cloud computing also follows similar structure. The service provider is responsible for taking care of the infrastructure which he is hosting, which the data centers, the networking equipment. He is responsible for taking care of the security there. But once we deploy our application, it is our responsibility to utilize the guidelines provided by the service provider and make sure that our application goes safe and secure. So that is what is cloud computing all about. Making sure that you're utilizing somebody else's resources and not worrying about exactly how it is being managed, where is it being managed, and just look at your use case and make sure that you're using it to the best possible manner. The market has always been towards cloud computing, and it has always been a robust market. If you look at Gartner's prediction, they were talking about even in the same trend continues. Gartner has predicted a similar trend even in 2016 and 2015. They say that the total amount of public cloud market would go into 1.81 billion. That is almost 38% growth, year-on-year growth for this year. Even Indian market has shown a lot of growth in this area, because if you look at it, India as a country, we have been service providers for multiple applications which are deployed across the world, or clients across the world. When a client wants to migrate to cloud, or when a client gets to know about what is cloud and wants to migrate to it, the first look is to the service provider. That's why India as a whole also is looking at a humongous amount of growth in cloud computing. Cloud computing spending on India is going to cross 10 billion by 2020. And the domestic IT market, even with a lot of digitization going on right now, the domestic IT market is also expected to grow very huge by 2020. And the top 3 cloud computing firms have spent $31.5 billion to just lease spaces in 2016. So last year, a lot of Azure has started up data centers in India. Google Compute Cloud is also looking at starting out data centers in India. In late 2015, Amazon has started out data centers in India. Now, they have spent a lot in just leasing spaces to making sure that their availability is increased. And when you look at this, the job predictions also are going very high in that manner. Overall, globally, Wall Street and even international job journal also is looking at 14 million jobs across the world created around cloud computing, and Microsoft says that there are 2 million jobs just in India. And Amazon's AWS job postings have increased 1,500% increase in 2000 by 2011 from 2011. And I was telling about International Data Corporation, where the cloud computing is creating 14 million jobs worldwide. Wanted Analytics also says that there are going to be 18.2 million cloud computing related jobs worldwide. If you look at overall, worldwide job predictions, China is on top with 7 million jobs, and followed by USA, and we are very close to USA with 2.2 million jobs waiting for us there. Thing is, there's a huge lack of skills. There are 25% of global IT talent would become redundant in 3 to 5 years because of the growth that is the IT industry is looking at. Every skill set that a person actually grows is going to become redundant in 3 to 5 years. And cloud computing experts are going to witness a very high demand in the next future. And this lack of skill pros in cloud computing has become a challenge across India. And these skill sets were not there a decade ago. If you look at cloud computing, AWS has started out S3 in 2006, almost a decade ago. Before that, none of us knew about what cloud computing is, and these skill sets were practically non-existent. So when you look at very high demand and there's a low supply, it's a big opportunity. But the opportunity is not only across other organizations, but also you can look at your own organization and see what are the digital trends that come up inside your organization. And having said that, 41% of IT professionals believe that their organizations will be ready for this digitization in the next couple of years. That is a huge number. You can look at organizations which are changing, whether it is whatever industry they are in, whether it is in banking, whether it is in healthcare, whether it is in e-commerce. You can look at a lot of digitization strategies that the senior management would be coming up, and almost 41% of the professionals believe that. And 29% of IT professionals would be involved in this digital transformation as their primary focus. Because the job, end of the day, whatever job that we have been performing, the similar job would be there definitely across cloud computing, but there will be a small change in the way it is being executed. Keeping that in mind, people also believe that they would be involved in this digital transformation. 91% of the IT professionals believe that they have a role to play in the organization's digital transformation, and that shows that the jobs are not going anywhere. End of the day, it's all about modulating your job to make sure that you are flexible enough to become a cloud service provider. 59% of IT professionals believe that their organization is unprepared for the transformation. So it is definitely needed. So these skills are needed even within the organizations to help them move from being a traditional IT organization to a cloud computing powered organization. So I was telling about what kinds of jobs would be there and what kind of jobs would be going away. So if you're already a Linux or Windows administrator, you would be looking at being a cloud Linux Windows administrator. So definitely deploying infrastructure on cloud and being a Windows administrator is your Windows skill set, or the Linux admin skill set will definitely be useful there. If you're already a network admin, you might have to, instead of taking care of one single network, you might have to configure multiple networks, set up VPN tunnels to the cloud providers infrastructure, and help secure migration from on-premise infrastructure to cloud, or setting up hybrid cloud. So you would be a cloud network administrator. If you're already into hardware management, yes, so definitely you would not be dealing a lot with hardware, but you would still be part of infrastructure security and being an infrastructure architect. Traditional architects who are more into infrastructure architecting are also going to become solution architect right now. So along with infrastructure, you also think of the business use case, you also think of the components of the infrastructure as well as the application, and come up with architecture diagrams, and also talk to the clients and giving them the value, giving them the value proposition about using different services on cloud. And product managers who are already there, definitely managing a product on premise is going to be similar to managing something on cloud, but having cloud skills for that particular role also is very vital, because the engineers who are going to be working with would definitely have that skills. and traditional DBAs, database admins, as well as backup specialists would also be cloud database admins and cloud deployment specialists, where they don't need to worry about how to deploy and how to manage it. It is more about utilizing cloud features and making sure that the overall availability of the application is becoming higher, and your recovery time objectives, your recovery point objectives are also becoming faster compared to what you would have actually had on-premise. And even testing and developers, you would be coming up with applications which are more deployed onto AWS or onto cloud, and then you would be a cloud automation engineer. Looking at currently, there is a merge of operations as well as development that is going on, which is more of DevOps. So that is where even an operations or a Windows administrator needs to look at having a scripting skill set to be able to automate mundane tasks, to be able to automate the overall delivery process of the code. And even the developers will also be looking at having an understanding of operations, so that they'll be able to have the code in a better fashion to be able to deploy without any hiccups. We just did a small comparison on Naukri.com. I just searched for a job offer, with Red Hat, just with Red Hat on the job profile, and with an average experience of 5.1 years, the average package that was offered was 5.5 lakh per annum. Now, to the same skill set, we just added AWS as a extra skill, and the package with the almost same years of experience. But if you see, the package has 100% hike. That means there is a humongous scope in which, if you look at cloud computing skills, and AWS is one of the top paying certifications if you take it up. And even in US, it has always been one of the top paying certifications if you look at all the journals, and it has a median salary of more than 110,000 US dollars. And Amazon Web Services has always been a market leader, and from the very beginning, it has always stayed on top. It has always been on top. And if you look at the kind of services that they have, they actually cover from the initial simple storage to computing to currently we are looking at more of artificial intelligence, machine learning services. So keeping that in mind, they've always been one of the market leaders. And of course, this webinar we'll be talking a little more about what kind of services are there and what does AWS offer. So different services that overall portfolio, just to give you an overall idea of what kind of categories of services that AWS offers. It began with compute and storage, which is similar to EC2 or S3 services, and then it went on to adding networking and content delivery services, moved on to having database and migration level services, also giving security, compliances and identity services, mobility and analytics services, game and app development, and right now they are into IoT, AI and machine learning. If you have attended the latest reInvent which happened last week, you would see that there's a lot of focus on analytics, there's a lot of focus on app and game development, and there's a humongous focus on artificial intelligence and machine learning. Just to give you a high level idea of what kind of services are present, what are the actual service names under each of the category. You look at storage, we have simple storage service, which is similar to just having, so you don't have to estimate or worry about how much storage would my application need. S3 is a service which is very highly available, very highly scalable service where you just have to upload the objects and then save them and then download the objects. Keeping S3 as one of the very old services in mind, right now simple storage service has almost trillions of objects and it does billions of requests per second. And definitely end of the day infrastructure always fails, and yes, you would have heard of S3 going down last couple of months back and also in the beginning of last year. AWS, it is Amazon's responsibility to make sure that the availability SLAs are actually going through. So that is about S3. Glacier is more of an archival service. Instead of worrying about putting your compliance details into or something that you need to store for years together, instead of putting them onto tapes and managing the tapes, managing data centers on the magnetic tapes, you can very well go with Glacier, which is an archival service, quite cheap and very highly durable service. When you look at compute and networking, first the service comes into picture is virtual private cloud. Just to give you a network level abstraction, network level security also into your control, Amazon has started out VPC in around 2013 and gave the control to the customers to be able to control their network. You will be able to create a small little private cloud on the public cloud infrastructure. When I say private cloud, it is more from the networking level, not from the infrastructure level or the data center level. You'll be able to create subnets. You'll be able to connect your own infrastructure, your own on-premise infrastructure with AWS using VPN tunnels. There are virtual private gateway. There's customer gateway. A lot more features. Looking at VPC to be able to build hybrid clouds. And also EC2 has been one of the very old services, which is a very crux of all the other services. It is the virtual machine service, where you get virtual machines of different sizes for different purposes, and with few clicks you'll be able to deploy different operating systems onto your onto the virtual service. It's one of the very old services, and every year they release new type of instances or new combination of CPUs, new combination of memory, to be able to cater to different needs, which are of game development, or which if you're looking at web application deployment, you're looking at web server, or you're looking at a database server, or you're looking at completely different use case where you need a very high computational power for your analytical activities, or you're actually looking at online gaming applications, or you're looking at mobile applications. You have respective instance types ready for you there. You just have to go select the instance type and deploy your applications on top of it. When you look at database, both Amazon has its hand onto both relational databases as well as NoSQL databases. So when you look at relational database, RDS is a service, relational database as a service, which caters to all majorly available relational database in the market. You can deploy MySQL, you can deploy MS SQL, you can deploy Oracle, you can deploy PostgreSQL databases with few clicks on RDS. And having to worry about taking backups, restoring from backups is not your headache anymore. These are just few clicks for you. So in the end, your RTOs and RPOs will be far better when you start going with RDS. DynamoDB is the NoSQL database as a service. And along with, of course, you have EC2 in case you're not looking at DynamoDB as a service. If you're already onto any other NoSQL database like Cassandra, CouchDB, MongoDB, of course, you definitely have Elastic Compute Cloud where you can deploy those applications also, those databases also. But in case you want to have a managed database as a service where you don't have to worry about backup, you don't have to worry about availability, you don't have to worry about the scalability of it, you very well can go with DynamoDB, which is a JSON type NoSQL database. All you have to do is just start creating tables, think of your indexes, think of your application data or the queries that you want, and DynamoDB takes care of scaling and availability issues. When you look at automation, one of the very old services that is there is CloudFormation, where you just have to come up with a JSON file to do a complete deployment in one go. Of course, if you look at today's scenario, or maybe I would say a couple of years back, a production day was considered to be very, very expensive day, because you would have everybody online, that is your deployment team, your testing team, the developers, the administrators, the stakeholders in terms of managers, the client side team, and our service provider team would be online just to make sure that everything goes fine on the production day. Now, the main reason is that you didn't see the production day scenario anytime before. It was the first time that you're seeing, and you are predicting that something could go wrong, and you have every team ready for it. But CloudFormation helps you in reiterating the same deployment again and again without you having to keep the infrastructure running up and running all the time. What if I tell you that you just have to come up with a file which has complete details of your infrastructure, and that file you can, with one click, you can use that to deploy whole of your infrastructure, check out if everything is working fine or not, and then discard it with one click, so that you only pay for what you're using. So before the production day, I can rehearse my production more number of times, so that on the production day I know what components are going to fail and what exactly is going to happen. CloudFormation is going to give you that flexibility, so that you can very well do similar deployments multiple times. Also, in case you have multiple clients who want to do the same kind of infrastructure deployment, and you don't have to worry about doing individual components, deploying individual components to all of them again and again. Instead, you come up with a CloudFormation template and use that for all of your clients. So that's CloudFormation. And Elastic Beanstalk is again one of the very old services. It's been there, it's been helping developers deploy their applications in a faster fashion. When you look at a developer, he comes into picture. He is not worried about exactly exactly what does web server mean, or what does an application server mean. A developer's job is to make sure that the application that he is coding, whether it's in PHP or whether it's in Java or Python or Ruby, He's worried about application features. He's worried about the scalability of the scalability of features rather than looking at what is a web server and application server. So Beanstalk is a very friendly service, a very user-friendly service where you can just go select what kind of deployment environment that you're looking at in terms of web servers, application servers, operating system, and with one click, just give the piece of code and you'll be able to deploy it into a highly scalable architecture. When you look at analytics, yes, EMR MapReduce has been there for a long time. So if you are into big data analytics, you would have heard of mapping and reducing, which is a way to convert. If you want to put MapReduce in one word, it's one very good way of converting unstructured information to structured information, so that you get some kind of insights from unstructured information. And for doing MapReduce, you definitely need a huge number of machines, huge infrastructure to be able to do MapReduce parallelly onto your terabytes of information. So Elastic MapReduce is a service which provides Hadoop, which is a distributed file system where you can actually run your map and reduce jobs on demand. So you can, with few clicks, you'll be able to get hundreds and hundreds of data nodes, hundreds and hundreds of name nodes, and all you have to come up with is your map function, reduce function, put your data onto it parallelly, and then actually come up with insights out of it. That is about unstructured information to structured. If you already have structured information, that is, if you already have a relational database on which you want to do analytical activities, you want to have a data warehousing application, Redshift is your solution there. It's a PostgreSQL application, PostgreSQL service where you can put up your data onto it, and then with few queries, you can very well come up with a lot of insights from the data that is already there. And also looking at security and audit, you have identity and access management, which is a user management service where you can, of course, when you look at infrastructure, managing infrastructure using a web service, you definitely need to have control on who can do what and who can do where. So these are the things that you can very well control with identity and access management. You clearly say that this particular user can only create machines, but he is not able to delete machines, or if he is able to only look at, he has only read-only access to all the infrastructure, he doesn't have any access to change anything on the infrastructure. So you have managerial control there. You can also integrate your internal applications with AWS using IAM. You also can integrate using SAML or OpenID Connect. And that way people can log in without having to remember new credentials or new passwords just for AWS. You can very well integrate with your on-premise applications. So IAM would be your solution for that. And when you look at auditing, definitely when there's a humongous size of infrastructure going on, you definitely need to have a place where you can log everything and audit and be able to audit in the later time. CloudTrail is a service which basically tracks each and every API call that happens onto your infrastructure. From the time a user signs in till he signs out, every API activity that he has done will be logged there, so that one fine point of time, if you want to troubleshoot, or if you're looking at finding out something happened and you want to find out what exactly happened and who did it, CloudTrail's logs will help you out. So that's a very high level of information. If you see, I have only around 12 different services here. Right now, there are more than 90 services that are hosted on AWS. With last week's announcements on reInvent, I'm pretty sure they've already crossed 100. So which are across complete domains, which are more into analytics, AI, and machine learning. So have a look at, create a AWS account, just go ahead and start experimenting with it. That should give you a clear idea of what kind of services are there. Moving on to onto this the same paradigm of services, what kind of roles would be there, and what is expected from a person who is working with AWS, what is expected of him for that specific role. We'll just have a look. So the first role that anyone could think of on cloud computing is a solutions architect role. First, to be a solutions architect, you would definitely need to have a very good hold of communication to be able to talk to the client, get their business level understanding, because a solution architect is a person who is going to convert business requirements into technical requirements. So you also need, along with the technical skill sets, along with having a technical understanding of AWS, he also needs to be able to understand the domain level concepts. When you're looking at being an e-commerce architect, or when you're looking at being a banking architect, you also need to have that domain knowledge. as well as AWS, and being able to convert this and communicate that with the client. So good communication skill is a very vital factor for being a solutions architect. Of course, the industry experience, the corresponding industry experience and best practices. You need to have little information about data and infrastructure management, and also AWS architectural best practices, what to do and what not to do on AWS, and how to use AWS in the best possible fashion. Looking at different domains, again, you need to have security best practices and have a very high level of AWS ecosystem understanding. So when a requirement comes to you as an architect, you need to actually know that yes, this is a particular service that could help out. So you need to have a very high understanding of almost all the services, and have a use case level understanding of where can the service be used and how can it be used. I would say if you are already having more than 5 years of IT experience, and whatever domain that you're into, if you have more than 5 years of IT experience, you already have experience working with clients, you've already been in client facing roles, being a solution architect on AWS is something that you can definitely look at. The second role is of course a developer. Developers need to have at least one high-level programming language understanding. He should be able to learn AWS SDK in a faster fashion, and he has to have knowledge to pick up AWS services. Of course, along with just having a coding knowledge, he also needs to understand where to use a particular service and how to use that service. So a service level understanding of AWS services also is needed, and to be able to write very optimized codes which can run on AWS or which can run with AWS services, which includes all the code best practices. Anybody who is a fresher, who have a good understanding of a high level programming language. When I say high level, I would say at least from Java to Python, Perl, Ruby. If you already have that hold onto the programming language, it should not take much time for you to go ahead, learn AWS SDK and pick up the right service and start building your applications. Next would be a SysOps administrator, who is more of a system administrator or a network admin. If you're already a network admin, already a system administrator, you can look at a SysOps role, who need to have both networking and administration skills. So it's not going to be two different roles anymore. If you're already a network admin and you're already a system administrator, either or you can very well look at being a SysOps administrator. You need to have experience with Bash or some kind of scripting language. Of course, you'll be using AWS console or the command line interface to interact with the infrastructure that is there that is being deployed. You need to have experience in managing, and deploying fault tolerant applications on AWS. So given an architect gives the architecture, it is the administrator's job to actually go ahead and do the deployment in that highly available or scalable fashion. But in the long run, architect is only going to suggest changes and then move on to the next client. It's a system administrator's or SysOps administrator's job to have continuous look at the infrastructure in terms of its security, do cost analysis, and then look at its overall managerial activities or management activities of infrastructure for that cloud, and then also suggest the same thing to the client. You also do performance analysis and manage. And if you already have 1 year of IT experience in being a network administrator or being a system administrator, definitely that would be a good start where you can start working with AWS infrastructure. Now, as I was also telling that there's a merge that is happening between a developer's role and a SysOps role or a system administrator role. Right now, you can also look at being a DevOps engineer who also has scripting language as well as administrative experience. So it is a merge of dev and operations. So you need to understand continuous delivery. So how do we make sure that when a developer writes a code, if it is pushed into my repository with one click, from my repository, it should get deployed onto my testing infrastructure. If everything is fine, it should automatically go and sit into my staging. And if my build is successful, everything is good, I should with very few clicks, I should be able to move my code into my production infrastructure. So you should have a very good understanding of continuous delivery system, and also have tools and technologies that are around the DevOps. So when you look at not just AWS services like code pipeline, code deploy, code commit, or data pipeline, or when you look at any other automation services, along with that, even the third party understanding also is definitely vital, like Puppet, Chef, Jenkins, Ansible. So in case you have experience with all this, would definitely be an add-on. So you need to use these tools to design and automate your day-to-day operational process. So if you already have at least 2 years of development or operations experience, you would be a very good, it will be a very good start for you to be a DevOps engineer. So if you look at the experience levels, I have just given these experience based on my understanding, because we have hired a lot of people from outside market. We have looked at freshers, we've taken up freshers and trained them. We have hired people with more than 10 years of experience. So with overall, this is my experience that I'm giving you, saying that yes, if you want to be a DevOps engineer, if you already have at least 2 years of experience being either a developer or an operations guy, it should help you move on to being a DevOps engineer role. Also, not just technical roles, there are a lot of places where you have business roles which are into sales, pre-sales, business analytics, delivery managers, team managers, and thought leaders. So all of these roles also having having a cloud understanding and having AWS service level understanding would be able to help you make, talk to your client in a better fashion, or come up with better plans, or come up with better reports. When you look at building a cloud teams, you'll be able to take the right decisions in terms of building the right teams, and also taking the right decisions in business level decisions. Having this understanding will be very helpful. And there are a lot of certifications which are which are around built around these skill sets. You begin with, you have AWS Solutions Architect, and being a developer and operations, and all of them have two different levels. You have AWS Certified Solutions Architect Associate. So you need to take up an associate certification to be able to take up a professional certification. So once you take up Architect Associate, you can also take up Architect Professional. You either take up Developer Associate or a SysOps Associate to be able to take up DevOps Engineer Professional. Along with this, there are specialty certifications that Amazon has released this year. That is AWS Certified Networking Specialty and Big Data Specialty. These are both professional level certifications, so you definitely need at least one associate certification before taking up these professional certifications. Along with that, if you're more becoming an APN partner, you have a bunch of requirements that you have to clear to be an APN partner, out of which there are business professional certification, which is helpful for sales guys or pre-sales guys to have overall understanding of very high level understanding of AWS services, and look at common business problems and how to solve them. Technical professional, so if you are already into more into pre-sales, and you're also looking at converting business requirements along with architects, is more of a simpler architect certification, which where you'll be talking about product, services, and common solutions, and also teach you in cloud economics if you are already into estimating infrastructure cost, or looking at more of procurement. So you also want to understand how much it costs on cloud, and what is the difference that you're looking at when you look at on-premise infrastructure and cloud. Yes, you can very well take up AWS TCO and cloud economics certification. But of course, as an organization, you need to sign up for being an APN partner, and only then you can take up all these three certifications, not as an individual. Right, now around the certifications, CloudThat offers a lot of courses. So we have AWS Solutions Architect Certification Bootcamp. It is a 4-day course which will be going through a very extensive theory and lab session. So you'll also get a hands-on experience on cloud, on AWS. We'll talk a lot about use cases, so you get that architecting experience. We give a lot of our experience in architecting infrastructure solutions for various domains. You will definitely look at all kinds of services, developer, storage, and all the execution layers. You will mainly look at planning and executing cloud projects, which will give you a very good experience in how to work with infrastructure in the first manner, or how to look at requirements, and also give a good experience for you to be able to clear interviews with confidence. So you will be able to take this up once. I think after my presentation, Meherzad will be taking up, and he'll be giving you a little more information about this. You also have a SysOps administrator track, where here you'd be concentrating more on managing cloud applications, migrating applications from on-premise to AWS. You'll also look at all the services, developer, storage, database, and execution layers. You will be concentrating more on implementing rather than planning for it. You'll be concentrating more on implementing cloud projects, and of course this also gives you good confidence into clearing administrator level interviews. Similarly, you have developer certification. This we talk about the SDK, and we make sure that you get the hands-on onto SDK and work with developer related services, which helps in deploying applications with higher availability. So you would be implementing cloud applications, and also, of course, you'll be looking at all the other kinds of services which are needed for the certificate. This also, all three of them are individually four-day courses that you can really take up. Along with that, once you clear a associate certification, you can really take a professional certification. So we have two of them here. One is a AWS Solutions Architect and also AWS DevOps professional track. So for taking either one, you need to have already associate level certification and also good hands-on experience, day-to-day working experience with AWS, which will help you, take up the professional level certification in a better fashion. So you can, so these are again two 4-day courses separately for both Solutions Architect Professional Level 4 is a 4-day course, and also DevOps Professional Level 4 is also a 4-day course. Now coming to the conclusion of it. Now, how do I get into a cloud role? So the first thing that you need to look at is go ahead and get the right training, because get the right understanding. So do your research, go ahead, go, Google is a very good place where you can start out, but of course you need to have a very in-depth and hands-on understanding. Get the right training at the right place, get your hands dirty. That's how you can very well nurture your skills, because unless you go ahead and actually look at creating an account and managing and deploying infrastructure, you will not get that experience. And then clear the necessary certifications that should help you either look at opportunities outside your organization, or of course you can look at opportunities internal to the internal to your organization, and also digitize your own organization and move forward. Or of course you can it's not just IT companies which are looking at digitization, as we understood. It could be a healthcare organization, or it could be a banking organization which is looking at digitization, and you having the right certification, you having the right skill sets for doing the digitization is going to be very, very helpful. With that as the conclusion, I'd like to thank you, and then and just give me a couple of minutes. I'll take up the questions that are already there. Srinath Reddy has said that Salesforce certification is top paying certification in the world. Definitely, yes, Salesforce is a huge CRM, but we are looking at deploying Salesforce kind of applications onto cloud. So AWS also has been on one of the top list, top 5 for the last 2 years, I guess. It is definitely one of the top 10. And Srinath Reddy again is saying, can a developer use Python? Of course, yes. Python is a very good language both for developers as well as for DevOps guys, because when you look at object-oriented language, object-oriented understanding, Python has a very good framework around it. So that will also be helpful in coming up with scripts which are doing automations, but also you can also come up with applications which are using either AWS services or that can run on AWS services. So it could be any high-level programming language from Java till Python, Perl, Ruby, Go, etc. Let me give you one more minute. I think you can very well post your questions. I'll be looking at the chat, and I can try to answer your questions. Srinath Reddy has again asked one more question. So yes, of course, if you want to go with machine learning on AWS, definitely there are services around it. If you already have AI experience and machine learning experience, AWS, what it does basically is abstracting a lot of information or making things easy for you. So it is more pertinent that if you already have IoT or machine learning understanding, you can really look at how does AWS make your life better in coming up with machine learning doing machine learning activities or AI activities. Yes, so there are very new services that have been come up, so definitely you can go check it out. I think there's a very good question by Mr. Amit. Yes, is Azure catching up with AWS? And definitely that's a huge yes. Azure has always looked at being, and Microsoft is a very very good at being at second position, and you can't take it very easy when it is in second position. Azure has began as a platform as a service. Right now, Azure is looking at being a very big competitor for AWS with services across from computing till machine learning and IoT AI related services. The bigger advantage that Azure has right now is their integration capabilities. So Active Directory or Microsoft AD that all the enterprise organizations have been looking at, they've done a very good job in integrating that with application level, authentication. So if you already are onto Microsoft AD, it makes a lot of sense for people to move on to Azure. And there's a lot of partner activities that they do, which help customers move to Azure in a faster fashion. AWS, on the other hand, is more open to everything. So they just they just they just give the service to you and then leave it to you on how to use it. So of course, when you look at cloud, it's all about being able to give the managerial level to somebody else, and then you looking at just your application, and Azure is doing a very good job. And answer is yes. It's a very very close competitor with AWS. It's always been second for now. All right, I think I'll pass on the buck to Meherzad, and thank you for attending the webinar.